In a time where indie games are constantly retreading classic retro grounds in new and inviting ways, the Messenger continues that trend through some fascinating twists. Rather than focusing on Mario, MegaMan, or Zelda, like many indie games have before it, the Messenger instead feels like a spiritual successor to Ninja Gaiden, albeit with a few surprises. The Messenger is available now for $20 on Nintendo Switch and PC. Opening up in a lost land, you play as a ninja whose home is being attacked by ravaging demons. Your clan tells you in order to preserve and save the clan, you'll have to deliver a message to the tallest mountain in the land, starting you off on your journey. It's a straightforward start that branches up in the later half of the game. Despite the story being just alright though, what I really found fun and humorous was the game's writing. Characters have these candid conversations that were just fun to read through. There's a bit with one of the NPC characters that just goes to great lengths that I literally sat there reading for about 5 minutes getting lost in it all. That moment alone will go down in history as one of my most memorable moments in gaming this year. The Messenger is a fast-paced action platformer that has you performing dangerous jumps, leaps, and attacks to survive. Enemies will come at you, whether it's them rushing you down or shooting a projectile at you. Their inclusions in the game aren't just obstacles though, but also actual platforms too. You see, the Messenger has a unique ability called Cloud Step. It's an extra jump you earn anytime you hit an enemy or an interactable object. It's an interesting mechanic that has you getting close to enemies and objects that you'd normally run away from, now being an integral part to your success. It's with this ability that the Messenger succeeds in recapturing the speedy platforming and challenging gameplay of the original Ninja Gaiden series that the Messenger is trying to celebrate. That's not the only tool in the Messenger's library of abilities though. Wall jumping using a wingsuit to hover over wide spaces and a grappling hook, I mean a rope dart, are just some of the few things you can experience in this game. When all these abilities and tools are brought together, the Messenger shines as a fun and challenging platformer, feeling like a retro-themed game that I haven't played in years. Levels will take you across different terrains as you climb up to the highest mountain in the land. They're pretty tough and had me frequently dying over and over again as I dared to perform risky jumps across enemies and beds of spikes. When you do die, you respond to these checkpoints that you find throughout every level, with some taking you to a special shop where you can exchange crystals and other collectibles. Speaking of collectibles, you can find rare collectibles in the form of power seals that are scattered throughout hidden areas in every level. There's certainly no walk in the park though, so collecting every single one of them will surely extend your playtime by a few hours. Outside of the challenging platforming, perhaps one of my favorite parts of the Messenger were the boss fights at the end of every level. Each boss fight pushes you to take on all the skills you learned so far, and most specifically, the new power you've gained in that specific level. Every boss feels unique from one another, increasingly getting more tough with every level you get past. Anytime I saw the last checkpoint for a level, which was indicated by a station to refuel my projectiles and health, I'd get really excited for the boss fight that was about to come. Now these were my thoughts and experiences in the first half of the game, but wow does this game take a turn midway through it. Out of nowhere, the Messenger throws a wrench into the gameplay and adds in a time travel element that completely alters the gameplay from 8-bit Ninja Gaiden inspired gameplay to 16-bit Metroidvania gameplay. The change itself would have been completely fine, I think, had a bit more thought gone into the level design and the Switch itself, but what I think hurts the second half of the game the most is the fact that the level design primarily stays the same. When jumping into this Metroidvania 16-bit world, you'll be traversing through the old levels you beat as an action platformer in 8-bit, now only as a Metroidvania level looking for collectibles in 16-bit. While it may work for some sections, it becomes quickly apparent that these levels were designed as an action platformer in mind, with the Metroidvania aspect as a second thought. Part of the cumbersome and at times chore feeling of exploring these levels is the fact that I already explored most of them in the first half of the game, sometimes constantly over and over again as I died repeatedly. Now to be fair, there are new hidden areas in the second half of the game, but most of it is still backtracking through levels you've already spent hours playing through and dying in. I think the most tedious part of all is while going backwards in these areas, the checkpoint system can feel unforgiving, like each one of them is placed just far enough to cause frustration. Ultimately, while I think the idea of jumping between the NES and SNES era of games was really cool and perhaps one of the best little twists about this game, the way it was executed could have been better. I think I would have preferred to have just one great 8-bit action platformer that eventually got a sequel as a 16-bit Metroidvania game, or keep the twist and just work on redesigning these older sections that better fit the genre. In the end, the Messenger starts off as one of my favorite indie games of this year, but fumbles to find its footing in the second half of the game like an odd twist in an M. Night Shyamalan film. The Messenger starts off as a game inspired by the NES classic Ninja Gaiden. Though it does primarily look like a classic 8-bit NES game, there are some assets here that make the game look more modern, like the art of boss fights. It has an admirable look to it though, it's simple yet beautiful at the same time. like finding a long-lost NES game that you never heard of but can't imagine skipping playing as a kid. Jumping into the 16-bit era, suddenly you begin to see the change in the art, not just by better looking sprites, but more activity in the overall world. Not only do rocks and lava look more detailed, but suddenly ember flares are floating in the foreground while candle flames dance in the background. Small but noticeable upgrades like that are really enjoyable to find. Whether I was playing at my desk on my computer or on the go with my Nintendo Switch, finding cool little touches like that always brought a smile to my face. As wowing as the visual changes between 8-bit and 16-bit were, the most riveting change was actually the music. One of the most incredible changes done with this game is the switch between 8-bit and 16-bit chiptune music. The Messenger seems to flawlessly switch between the two styles without dropping a beat or in quality. It's crafted beautifully to not only be some of the best chiptune music in gaming, but something that fully immerses you into the idea of time travel. You don't only see it, you hear it and feel it. The Messenger may just be one of the best action platformers I've had the chance of playing. It's challenging to go through but a joy to finally complete after 12 to 15 hours. I loved a lot about this game, the action, the presentation, and the writing. Seriously, the writing for this game was surprisingly hilarious and witty, with probably one of my favorite moments in the game this year, just talking to an NPC. With that said, the Messenger does drop the ball a bit in the second half of the game when it switches over to a Metroidvania. It's not a bad idea, it's a rather innovative one that just wasn't done as well as it could have been. If I had to give it a score, I'd give the Messenger an 8.5 out of 10. That does it for my review of the Messenger for the Nintendo Switch and PC. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more reviews just like this every single week. If you want to watch my Twitch live streams or just talk to me on Twitter or Discord, you can find those links in the description as well. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.